Okay, so here's what we got to in part one. I designed and built the frame from V-slot aluminium extrusion. With my laser cutter, I created brackets to mount the water cooler to the front and the graphics card to one side. Dude, that's insane. That is so cool. And so today we now need to add the rest of the computer components. Now, I told you these were provided by ASUS. Really cool story how that came to be. A dude that works for them saw my desk build series and was like, hey, I see you've got a laptop. Do you want to build a custom PC? And so he sent me a bunch of stuff. But I'm gonna start with this power supply, because it should be the easiest part to attach to the case. I've built a lot of computers, but never with a small form factor power supply. This is teeny. Look at this metal and the white. Does it get any better? And all our cables, I don't know, bro. That's a pure white zip tie. You can see it's like a slight, almost beigey white. Would be nice if that was crisper. Oh man, this is gonna be easy. Okay, so this needs 6 screws. It's got an adapter bracket from small form factor to full size power supply. And so with a couple measurements and a photo of that bracket, I can make my own. Somehow the top and bottom holes are about 1 mil out, but that's an easy fix. I also designed a little shelf to take some of the weight of the power supply. I really like how this bracket looks, but it's got a bit of flex, so I might upsize to a 6mm bracket, but in general, power supply is mounted, so now it's time for the motherboard. Ah, that is so cool. Look at this huge heatsink that's up the back, and there's even a vent because there's a literal fan to cool the NVMe drive. Speaking of which, I can't afford to buy right now the rest of the parts needed to build the computer, but I wasn't gonna pass up the opportunity from ASUS. So I reached out to Team Group. I've worked with them in the past. They sent me the Z540 PCI Gen 5 solid state. The read is up to 12,400 megabytes a second, and one of the slots on the motherboard will give us those speeds. I just need to figure out which one. So this is one PCIe version 4 slot, and then this literal fan built into the motherboard will blow air and help cool it. The crazy thing is this circuit board plugs into this slot. So this allows us to take the solid state drive and actually place it on top. And this is a PCIe Gen 5 port for that high speed, and it'll actually sandwich between 2 thermal pads because these things get hot. I'm not kidding. Like Team Group literally sent a cooler, like a bolt-on radiator and fan for a drive. This is what you would need if your motherboard didn't have a heatsink and cooler. Problem though, I installed the drive's included graphene heat shield, but it wouldn't sit flat in the slot. So I took it off and the drive still would not go all the way down. The stock thermal pad of the motherboard was so thick that the drive actually bent when it was sandwiched in place. I guess we'll find out if this is an issue. Being a mini ITX motherboard, we only have 2 slots for RAM. Team Group sent me 64 gigabytes, so 2 32 gig sticks. And being DDR5, they'll pop in place perfectly. And for the nerds out there, there's 6000 megahertz CL8 timing. They obviously have faster and slower RAM options too. So big thank you to Team Group for supplying those parts and sponsoring the build, because it wouldn't happen without them. Now I have laser cut a template for the motherboard. This will allow me to test out some mounting brackets without risking damage to the actual motherboard. So I should be able to kind of bolt straight into the frame here with some spacers. But if you remember in part 1, the GPU riser cable has to do a 90-degree turn and a 180-degree hook into the motherboard, and all those bends have to be in the gap between the graphics card backplate and the back of the motherboard. Wish me luck. Okay, so here's the plan. There are 4 mounting holes on the motherboard. Each hole can fit an M3 bolt, and there's some safe space at the back for a standoff. So with some 10mm thick acrylic, I can laser cut some washers that will act as standoffs between the frame and the motherboard. Problem is they can slip into the groove of the V-slot, so with a 3mm clear acrylic offcut from the power supply earlier, I can slice up some larger washers. And now we have all the parts needed to mount the motherboard to the frame. But before I can try that, I want to try flipping the radiator. See, I saw a comment on part 1 reminding me that if the pipes are at the top of the radiator, you can get a water gurgling sound, which will be more noticeable in this open frame design than in PCs I built in the past. Oh, that's a lot higher. Man, this just got way more complicated. I need to rearrange some brackets so the pipes can better sit at the bottom, but first, this power supply has really sharp edges, so I'm just going to cover it up so I don't accidentally slash the nice woven outer of the tubes whilst I do all of the rearranging. I trim some brackets so they'll sit flush with the side of the radiator, and then laser cut some spaces which will bridge the gap to the frame. And after all that, I didn't account for the height of the head of a bolt, which now touches the motherboard. Okay. I'm not really sure what I should try and do. I didn't plan for the pipes to be at the bottom at all, which has then shifted everything up. I can just remove the one bracket from this side. The other option is I somehow get the bracket up to the top. If you can't tell, this is my first time designing a custom case, so 3mm clearance is all that's getting in the way of mounting the motherboard over the bracket that I want to put there. I'll figure it out. To keep moving forwards, I just need to mount the CPU cooler to the motherboard. But before we can do that, I need a CPU. So I was chatting with my wife, Chelsea, and I said, look, I've been blessed so far with stack of parts for this computer, but I need a processor. And if I buy it, it's gonna leave my project funds pretty dry. Do you reckon Intel would sponsor my build? And she's like, well, the worst they can say is no. Oh my. I cannot believe that Intel is sponsoring my own personal PC build. This is wild. Bro, this thing is a mirror. There she is. Intel Core i9 14900K. Mate, we are top shelf here. This is a 14th generation Intel Core i9 processor. 24 cores, 32 threads, 6 GHz max clock speed. And that creates a lot of heat, which is why we have the 360mm water cooling radiator. I cannot wait to get this thing fired up. Get all these T-nuts into their slots. My days. Oh geez, I tripped on my stool. This is so gonna work, man. Oh, look how close it is. This can bend around. Tab came up. That's it. Wait, get rid of this. What the heck, man? I've never seen this done before. Vertical GPU mount with the motherboard ports at the back because the cable's doing that 90-degree bend and then looping in. Oh man, if only it was a little easier. Now I need to learn how to 3D model the front. Okay, so in part one, I showed you my Pinterest board of inspiration, and you may have noticed there's actually some cars, mostly exposed frame. My idea here is I can build the frame, bolt the computer parts to the frame, and then 3D model and create a flowing, curved panel that's bolted on, like a car. The pinnacle would be a wide body Porsche. Like these RWB body kits by Naka-san are absolutely beautiful. And I want to treat the arch around the wheels like an arch around the fans. And then I kid you not, Mods by Ben, which makes like custom PCs works of art, honestly, for expos, game releases, insane builds. He goes and 3D prints the exact radiator tower that I wanted. Flared, fan, holes, everything. And so my design, instead of being a separate stand like in his build, is going to wrap around the front of the PC. And I figured I can use the new PC to model the design of the new PC. Now in the previous episode of my desk build, I told you to put a button that will power on the PC. But for now, I'm just going to rig up something I can hotwire to start it up temporarily. Graphics card's plugged in, that's seated, our RAM is seated. Oh yeah, it's time to switch it on. Hey! Oh, we're up. All right, if you're an IT nerd, you know the next steps. Make a bootable USB and install Windows to the solid state drive. That little fan on the motherboard is so high pitched. Could be the pump. You know, we can find out. We're just going to yank the power for the pump. It's the pump. All right, let's turn this off before the CPU overheats. I built a few PCs with water-cooled pumps, and that, I've never heard that like high pitch. I made sure there's no air caught in the pump. It's definitely all over in the radiator, and this is just what it sounds like. Unfortunately, it's most noticeable in line with the pump, which is right where I sit. It's kind of like there's a bee buzzing in your ear, constantly. Oh, baby! A lavish 2.1-inch display. Before I could tell Seuss the pump was loud, they sent me an upgrade to the model I already had, but this time with a screen built in. This would be perfect to settle if the sound is by fault or design. Speaking of design, when I was switching over the radiator, I realized I can reuse the brackets I made in part 1 on a different set of mounting holes, and this will screw in under the motherboard with no issues of clearance. Power supply on. Please, please be silent. It's still that high pitch. I know, dude, it's like a sensory thing. It just does my head in. If it was in a case, probably fine. Thankfully, I found a solution. See, the pump's actually made by Acetec. It's the 7th gen version 2 of this pump. And I found posts online saying that it's noticeably loud, even on coolers from other manufacturers. ASUS engineers told me it's best to run the pump at 100% speed for longevity. But it is designed to be able to run slower so you can adjust the pump's speed curve. This way, it's unnoticeable at idle temps, running at around 40% speed, and then it ramps up under load, at which point it's buried behind fan noise. So the 360mm is the radiator part with the fans, but it is actually taller. I want there to be a smooth sweep over the top and down along the motherboard, and then sweeping out, matching the height of this power supply. The difference with the graphics card side is that this gap can stay open, so it can easily just vent out. I'm gonna just try and follow the same line down, come across. I don't even know how to use the 3D model software. I'm learning it as we go. The good old trusty power button. Now, since Ben's design is pretty much exactly what I'm after, he sent me a copy of the 3D model file so I can take a look at how he filleted and chamfered all the curves and edges. To make anything like this, I've bought and I'm learning a new piece of software called Plasticity. It took about a day to get familiar enough with the tools to make something, but its main feature is curved surfaces galore. Like you can fillet a fillet and then a fillet that fillet. Like you can just make everything smooth. It's the perfect tool for this project. I did a quick 3D print to be able to see the shape of the design, and I feel that I want the curves to be deeper, to have more of a flowing effect over the fans. So on the second day, I just went for it. Full stack, baby, 3 fans, full radiator, just seeing what it would look like if I curved everything together. And this is why I bought Plasticity. It's $299 US for the studio license, and this is a lifetime license, not a subscription. That price also includes Xnerves, which is normally a $400 US plugin for other software. I intended to use Xnerves as it can create organic flowing surfaces like car parts, but I think I found a way to do it without. I do know what I'm doing. That's the confident speak. I'm not too happy with these fillets. Like that looks like a lot of wide body wheel arches, but then when you have 3 of them, I probably prefer to have more of a smooth curve. Oh, that's how we get the extra sweep. We just go past the height, do a chamfer on this line, and then tell this to chamfer itself. Is that the answer? Did I just find out the answer? From the top down, it's a nice curve. It doesn't bulge out the corner. I was actually laying in bed and I was struggling to figure out how am I going to do this. But to avoid that big bulge, all I had to do was just round the corner first, then do it. That whole surface just kind of like hugs right around and blends in. So my first impressions of Plasticity is it's very intuitive, but it doesn't have version history or parametric modeling. So if you make a mistake, you better hope that you have saved an older copy of your file to go back to. Boolean. So cut all the holes out of the blue one. Oh, bro. Man, every time I upgrade my PC, it just blows me away at the new level of performance. Like I've used an Intel Core i9 for the past 4-5 years, mainly for the multitasking capabilities. People might be gaming and live streaming, but I'm modeling and recording my screen. I just don't have to think about or even compromise with the background tasks. And even look at this 4070. That thing's like hardly sweating at all. That reminds me, I want to pull out the graphics card and paint it white. So the 3D model is too big to fit my printer, and even split into parts, it'll take days to print. So I'll stop one short to check tolerances, and being happy with the curve, let's set a full one off overnight. Wow. We've got Verifloss, guys.
They must have just failed after the first layer. Oh, it's these edges again.
It was apparent that my long sweeping curve of the base wasn't 3D print friendly, so I made it shorter. Bro, there's no freaking way. It just got past it and then the nozzle's clogged. What? What is going on? How many failures?
I'm really hoping this worked. It actually did. So I went back to the step in the file so I could redo the bottom, and I put through the holes to mount it to the computer. That's great. Man, this project, it's almost got to break me. I've got 2 pieces here that have worked. Everything else has failed. I feel like I need to slow down, but I've actually got a deadline of end of month and I've got like 2 days. I guess thankfully I still have a print in PETG. It's not perfect. There's lots of clots and a lot of cleanup to do, but I can use this to check fitment and then set off a final copy in standard PLA. I really try not to dwell on when things go wrong, but my goal is always do the next best thing, no matter what. It's just what's the next best move to keep moving forward. In this case, that's make the base straight so it doesn't need supports and put the mounting holes back in. Whilst that's printing, we can check out the graphics card, which, as you can see, the plastic tip has cured. It's a rubbery, stretchy plastic, but that also means that it's stuck to the tape. Man, this is stressful as.
So I had to try and cut it by hand.
My glue went too high.
So between you and me, let's just pretend that I got a perfect edge for the sake of my perfectionism.
2, 1, 0. Wait, what? Why can't remaining just go up? I swear they just said 0.
24 hours later, the final parts are printed, and after many hours of cable management and fitting every panel to the computer, it's finally complete. Although I plan to use the 2.5 gig LAN port, I did install the Wi-Fi 6E antenna in case it's ever needed, and I added a DisplayPort extension cable to panel mount so the graphics card's display out is at the back of the PC. And if I upgrade the graphics card, there is length at the base, and I can change the bracket at the top for a longer model. And yes, the button built into the desk turns on my PC. For my first ever custom PC case, I'm pretty stoked. It's come out looking exactly how I was wanting it to in my head. The flowing from the top of the radiator down into the power supply. As a computer nerd that studied IT at uni, my PC means more to me than most people, and being able to combine it now with my new love and passion for customizing technology, this just embodies everything that I like. So thank you for watching and subscribing. Thank you to the sponsors for providing the parts. I'll link everything down below, and I'll catch you in the next tech project and reviews. Bye.
Just put it together. First time seeing the lights. Oh, and the power supply works now.